I'm so excited for my daddy's podcast, and it's going to start right now.
Welcome back to the Lessons for Success show. I'm your host, Adam Wardlaw, a middle school science teacher and high school football coach here in the state of South Carolina. Thank you to everyone who's supported the show so far. I just checked, and Lessons for Success is now heard in 8 countries and 30 states here in America. Hopefully you've all gained some valuable insight from our guests so far on the show. Remember, new episodes come out every Sunday, and the show is available everywhere where podcasts can be found. Keep up with the show on social media at L4S Show or use the hashtag L4S Show. Before I forget, you can support the show by giving a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Now let's start the show.
Daddy, who's the guest on your podcast this week?
This week's guest is Coach Terrance Banks. Coach Banks is a teacher as well as the head football coach at Tri-Cities High School in Atlanta, Georgia. Coach Banks shares how he entered the teaching and coaching profession after beginning his professional career in another field. You can keep up with Coach Banks on Twitter at tbanks1906. Enjoy.
My parents got married. I was their first child. They had children before they married me. I'm their oldest child together. And my parents, I was blessed to have a good mother and father, both middle class upbringing. And when I was in high school, I knew that I liked 2 things gravitated to me. My father was working in the computer industry, and math was my favorite subject. I liked the thought of being around people, but I was like, I like being a teacher, but that's not really where the money is. So I'm going to go be a computer scientist. I'm going to make lots of money because money is happiness back when you're 16 to 18, at least you think. And as I'm doing my working on my degree, what I come to the fact that I think that I'm graduating and I want to get involved in something. And so my senior year, I'm doing an internship with the local government here, which was fun, but not fun because it was only fun when something happened. The rest of the day was spent in a cubicle. But I was able to be a volunteer football coach at my younger brother's school. So his senior year, I'm volunteering as a football coach on his team, and I'm finishing up my bachelor's degree. And I'm talking to my old elementary school PE teacher, who was a phenomenal man, and he says to me, find happiness, not money. If you find happiness, you are always running the money. And so I asked myself, what would I be happy doing? Being a teacher and coaching sports and dealing with kids, or being a computer scientist? So I ended up as going to become a mathematics teacher and becoming a football coach, and they threw track on me my first year. So my 2 loves became track and football. This was 13 plus years ago, and here I am today as a head football coach / math teacher / computer science teacher / PE teacher. That is how the transformation into how I got to my current spot happened. And I've learned along my journey, I've modified what my PE teacher told me, which was chase happiness, not money. Chase your purpose. That will help you find your passion, and then everything else will take care of itself. So a lot of people say find happiness, not money. That's 60% true, 67% true. Find your purpose, use it to find out what you're passionate about, and then everything else takes care of itself. So that's kind of where I'm at in a nutshell.
Well, I think that last part's awesome. Teaching 7th and 8th graders on a daily basis, like you mentioned earlier, it's just like money is the only thing they focus on, and they think that money will solve a lot of these issues. And there's a lot of people out in society that thinks that's the same way. And so you wind up a lot of people, doing jobs that were for the money, and several years in, or however long in, they decide it's just not for them. Do you have any kind of insight on some things you could do to help you find that passion? I know you talked about how you went into one field and then realized that maybe that's not where you're going to be happiest at. If anybody's listening out there that's maybe in that same boat, do you have any tips for them?
I mean, it comes back to the biggest purpose is finding out your purpose and your why, and you basically have to. And I would tell people, you kind of come up with your own mission statement for life. What is it that you want to do with your life? That helps you with your why. So my mission statement is that I want to be the best husband, father, brother, son I can, while changing the lives of students, especially young men, through football. So students or children helps me get my why. I tell myself, when people ask me what I do, I don't even say I'm an educator anymore. I tell them I'm an advocate for children. That's what I do. I advocate for children on a daily basis. I love coaching football. And so I get to change the lives of young men through football. And so that is my why. That is my purpose. And that keeps me going, my purpose, no matter what. Now, there are some times where I am passionate about what I'm doing, and that is an extension, but the purpose is something that is great. You know what I'm saying? The purpose is what leads you. For example, I told my students in my computer science class this. I was a head coach for 6 years. I resigned and I kind of got low for a while. But what kept me going is the fact that I was an advocate for kids, and I knew I was going to be a football coach again. I just had to find the right spot. And so while I was low for a month or two, real low, my purpose kind of brought me back. Now, I wasn't as passionate at my school because I wasn't the head coach for a while, but my purpose kept me going. And then all of a sudden, my passion got back into it. I found another job to be a head coach at, and as I'm transitioning, my passion that I had for my current school went back up. My purpose meant every day I came and I did my job to the best of my ability. But my passion gave me that extra reason to do it. And so I think with anybody, you start off by figuring out what it is you want to do, how that result into your life mission, and then everything comes back to itself. So if you like feeding people, that does not mean you're going to be a cook. Maybe you're going to run a restaurant. Maybe you're going to do something else. Those type of things, you find yourself in that. Well, hey, I like working with my hands. Okay, cool. What is it about your hands you want to do? Is it mechanic? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Is it plumbing? Those type of things lead you into your purpose. And then you say, well, I'm passionate about this part of it. And you go from there. So I tell people, figure out your mission, figure out what it is you like doing, and those things lead to the next level. And you go from there. And I think that's really important.
Coach, that's awesome what you said about finding what you're specifically passionate about on a daily basis. I hear students who want to be nurses and doctors or engineers or all these fantastic careers, but they really only say those things because, like you said, they might say, well, I like building things or I like helping people. And so they just automatically assume that, well, hey, it's got to be this one career. And, I think what you're saying is great that, let what you really like to do. You like to help people. Okay. Well, don't just narrow it in on this one career choice. There's all kinds of jobs out there where you end up helping people in the end. And I think that's a great thing for anybody who out there that's listening for them to hear. I'd like to hear some more things that you're doing for your players and your students. What are some other things that you're kind of trying to emphasize with them on a daily basis with your interactions with them?
Well, I'm big on, one thing. So a perfect example of this would be this, and this is an interesting topic. This is going to lead into every Friday I give my class a speech. So the speech starts off with three things. I tell them, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive, don't get into the car with anybody who is drunk. Driving accidents are the number one killers of teenagers. So I start by telling them that. Number two is I tell them don't swim alone. Get your cramp. If there's nobody there, there's no telling what could happen. So don't do that. Number three is I tell them to love their providers because child services is one phone call away. That's getting back to the rule of love your mother and father because that's what you get. No matter what they're doing, I don't say you have to agree with it, but still love them. Then I give them the most important part of it is I think I give them a word a week. And the word of the week has been self-esteem all year. It never changes. And what I say is, I say this, the word of the week is self-esteem because nobody can give you self-esteem. Nobody can take your self-esteem. That's why they call it self-esteem. And I emphasize the self part of each one of those. And then I give them a tidbit for the week. And that's important because, when we talk about one of the kids asked me yesterday the same question, Coach Banks, where does the purpose and the passion come in? So I told them, tell me, and why is purpose more important than passion? So I asked my kid to tell me something you're passionate about. And she said, I love giving speeches. That's my passion. So I love giving, people nuggets of speeches. I said, okay. So and she happens to be our student body president. And I asked her to tell me about her speech. And she did. She told me about the kind of speech she gave. And I said, okay, I need you to give me that same speech. Start off with the first 4 lines. Start off with that speech, giving that speech, and you're giving it with this in mind. Your grandmother's in the crowd. She has stage 4 cancer. She's going to die in a week, and this is going to be the last time you're able to give her that speech. And when she started off that line, she gave something different when she gave out to it. I said, you're passionate about giving speech. When I told you why you had to give the speech differently, it gave you your purpose. So the 2 things I want to leave with my students is your self-esteem belongs to you and nothing can change it. And your purpose or your why is when you operate in your passion. And so those 2 things are the 2 things I want to give students in their time with me. Because that's all we have to give them. Maybe it won't click today, but at some point it should click.
Well, I think what you said right there at the end, couldn't be any more true. Something I've always heard is that it's a constant battle that, it's not just going to be a one time you talk about it and it's done kind of thing. Some kids will forget the minute they walk out of your room, or some people forget the minute that you're not talking to them anymore. And so that next day you come right back in and you're trying to drill those things into them some more. And I think whoever's out there listening could learn a great deal because it gets really frustrating sometimes when you feel like, you're doing all this work, you're pouring into these kids, and you're investing in them, and then you've always got some that take a lot more investment than others. Do you have any tips for dealing with students or people in general who maybe take that extra investment so a lot of people out there don't get too burned out?
You have to stay the course no matter what. You have to stay the course no matter what. You have to stay the course no matter what. No matter what happens, always understand. This is getting to the best leadership advice I can give you, which comes from Brian and Tim Kite. We've all heard it, but I will say it again. No matter what, you have to operate with your response And then number two, I give you one of the best advice I found when I started to research and read by Joshua Metcalf is your principles are always more important than your feelings. You live in your principles, and if you always respond correctly, the outcome, while you don't have any control of it, you differ it by how you respond. And when you respond, never let go of your principles, no matter what you're feeling. My example would be there were some coaches clinics. When I resigned from my first job as being head football coach, I was in a real depressed spot. I never thought it would end like that. And there were football clinics that I had planned on going to and people I had planned on helping that I did not want to go to anymore because I was embarrassed, shamed, and depressed. But I went because I got out of my feelings and then I learned something. And lo and behold, now I'm back as a head football coach. And I'm taking that knowledge that I got from even at my lowest point to where I am now to hope to never get there again. Imagine if I would have said, woe is me, and let my feelings dictate not growing. I would be stuck in that same spot, even with my new opportunity. So no, that did not affect my outcome of becoming a head coach, but my response there will help this new event, which will help how I respond at this head coaching job, which can help that outcome last longer and be more beneficial in my new situation. So whatever you're going through, no matter how you're feeling, it does not matter. Live in your principles and respond the way you know you have to help that child or help yourself get the outcome that you would desire.
Coach, I think there's so many great lessons that people can draw from what you said about, just stay in that course even when times get hard or you're going through things that maybe you didn't necessarily expect. And I think there's so many people out there that can benefit from that because we're all going to go through those points in our own lives. Coach, I appreciate the time you gave me this afternoon. If anybody that's out there listening wanted to get in touch with you, do you mind sharing any sort of contact information that would be the best way to get to you if they wanted to reach out to you?
If you're on Twitter, tbanks1906, email tdotbanks@gmail.com.
Daddy, I'm learning so much from this podcast.
I enjoyed my discussion with Coach Banks and thought his message on finding happiness was fitting for a lot of people out there. Let's review this lesson for success. Early in the episode, Coach Banks describes how he sought a career that would garner him a higher salary. Coach Banks was like many of us out there who thought the key to happiness was money when we were growing up. Coach Banks shares that if you really seek out what makes you happy, it can lead to not only a more fulfilling life, but you can also find the other necessities as well, which include money. Well, that's it for this week's Lesson for Success. Be sure to interact with the show on Twitter and Instagram at L4S Show, mentioning us or using the hashtag L4S Show. Again, that's the number 4. Episodes will also be placed on the YouTube channel Lessons for Success Show. Download the Anchor app in order to send in messages to the show, and your questions and comments could be featured on future episodes. All of the episodes are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or anywhere else that podcasts can be found, so be sure to like, subscribe, and rate. Thank you again for listening to the Lessons for Success Show podcast.